Check 1, 2.
Sorry. Meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Olthoff,
Present.
Mr. Tripp,
Present.
Mr. Washington,
Present.
Mr. Tholen, Ms. Polk, Mr. Mulcahy, Mr. Byrne, Mr. Hildebrand, Mr. Einfeld, Mr. Payton, Ms. Peters, Ms. Dunbar, Mr. Ritter, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public comment. We have one. Mr. Wesley Sons. Would you use the microphone right there, please?
Here, guys. Was it on?
Yes.
Oh. My name is Wesley Son, resident of Momence Township. Well, the reason I'm here is to
Would you
bring up the fact.
speak into the mic? Speak into the microphone better. Yep, that's good.
I'm here to bring up the fact of the non-enforcement of the codes that are written. The one for, I'm in a zoned A2 area. The neighbors are all zoned A2, which basically says, exactly it says, A2 Agriculture State District is intended to promote low-density residential uses and rural character in areas of the county where topographic conditions are best adapted to residential uses. Pretty much sounds like a residential lot. That's what I was told when I bought my property next door. And you're allowed to keep horses. One of the permitted uses is keeping of horses, excluding other livestock. Then the next line below it says keeping of exotic animals as regulated here in the papers here. Exotic animals means other than domestic animals that normally live in the state of nature, the wild. That's exotic animals. I keep getting told it's a farm. They want to use it as a farm. So they're going to have cattle. So a farm, in here, the definition, you guys write the code, means having 20 acres or more being used primarily for agricultural purposes. And they say you also, you're allowed to keep exotic animals is regulated in section C under special uses. Now they've never applied for a special use permit, but underneath that it says animal farms engage in the raising of exotic animals such as fox, mink, chinchilla, chickens, hogs, turkeys, dairy cows, horses. These are the exotic animals. And other farm animals when not an accessory to the pursuit of agriculture and provided no building or structure is within 200 feet of the neighbor's lot line. All their buildings are within 200 feet of my lot line. And they don't have, this is basically saying, maybe they have a pet cow or pet pig or pet chicken. Okay. They have 47 cattle, 20 horses, chickens, goats, and pigs. This is on 4.5 acres, 5 acres that they have. They never requested a permit. They're allowed to keep horses, according to the code, 1 per acre in their side lot or the rear lot. They have the whole yard is fenced in. They've never mowed once this year because they just let the horses and the cows walk right around the house and eat everything. They get out on a regular basis, come over to my place because there's green grass over there. Their whole place is bare dirt because of their pasture land has been so packed on, they don't even have a pasture there. I brought up, this has been going on for years, I've been bringing it up, about the fences. When they first put in a fence, I said, wait a minute, when I put up a fence, they said, you're in a residential place here, the finished side out. I'm like, they're putting up fence with rolls of rubber belting that they get, tar paper, sheets of plywood, paneling, 2x6s, railroad ties, scaffolding brackets, whatever they can make it out of, that's what this fence is. So I brought it up and I said, how can they get away with using this kind of fence with no finished side out? They said, well, they're using it as farm fencing. They don't need a permit for farm fences. It's not on the agenda. They're still in the area zoned A2. We go by the A2 zoning rules. That's what I was told when I put my fence up. I went to put up a building, a 40 by 70 garage I was building. And when I asked, I called down, I said, do I need a permit? And they said, oh yeah, you need a permit. I said, well, what about the neighbors? They're putting up a 40 by 80 building. They don't have a permit. So they came out and red flagged that building. A week later, it was done. They finished it anyway. But this building was a cement block building. I live right across from a quarry. When you dig a hole, you get down about 2 feet, you hit solid rock. So to get 42 inches like the footings call for, when I put my building up, it cost me $4,000 extra to have a truck come out there, one of them well drilling trucks, to dig holes in the solid rock 42 inches deep, because that's what was required to put my footing in. They went down 2 feet, put their cement block building up. The building was almost completed. When it got red flagged, they came in and got a permit. The permit says it's a wooden frame building with 6x6 posts on 8-foot centers with 42-inch deep cement piers that they're cemented into. And that was a permit they applied for. And right on the permit it says if you're changing it, make sure you bring it up. Well, they went in and finished it. And I asked them, I said, hey, nobody's ever inspected this. And they said, yeah, they went and looked at it, but it hasn't had they never came back for the final inspection. Well, nobody ever looked at it the first time because they would have realized it was already no piers. It's a concrete block building. You know, they just came in and pulled a permit for whatever somebody told them they wanted to build. And the electrical's in there, extension cords, rafter to rafter. I've seen it. You can see it from the road. There's no electrical done. It says electrical in the conduit. And when it comes to the final inspection, they sent them a letter once, a year after they started, sent them a second letter about a week later, sent them a certified letter, nothing ever happened. It says, okay, they closed it, no final inspection ever done. So I asked them, I said, well, according to the code, with a building permit, you're not allowed to use that building until the final inspection is done. Otherwise, there could be fines, fees, and every offense is a new fine. Every day they use it is a new offense. So this has been going on for 5 years. 6 years they've been using that building. Not only use that building, they've already added an addition to it, and they're working on the second addition. They've added 5 additions to their barn, which was 4,000 square foot, the original farm barn. Now it's 7,000 square feet of lean-tos with blue, white, red, green, sheet metal, whatever they could make it out of. Just lean-tos all over. And this is what this property is looking like. And now there's fences. When they applied for their first fence permit, they put up a fence about 300 feet long around along their property to keep their cattle off of mine, basically. And now there's thousands of feet of fence there. It's around the whole place. I complained to the health department about the cattle manure running in my yard because they've got so many cattle. When it rains, all that manure is running in my yard. It's killing the whole row of trees I put up to block their fence so I didn't have to look at it. They're all dying. So the health department says we don't deal with livestock waste. So I called the EPA. They come out, took soil samples, and they're working on it. And apparently they got word to them that they were there taking pictures of the property because the manure was running onto mine. So they took their big pile of manure that was about 8 feet high, as big as this room, and they piled it up 2 feet high all the way around their fence. So that so it's not running onto my property now; it's just seeping on there. You know, now instead of running onto my property, it runs into the ditch in the front of the house. My time is up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Just want to bring this up, make it. I'll come back again and finish the rest of what I got to say.
Thank you.
I appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully something's on there.
You've received the minutes of the May 18th, 2017 meeting. Are any additions or corrections? Motion to approve would be in order. Mr. Payton, Mr. Washington. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Building report. Thank you. Takes me a while to get back in the groove.
Building report for May 2017. We had 80 total permits. 3 of those were new homes for a valuation of $2.5 million. And we collected fees on permits of $23,804. When you add in the additional fees for fines, plan reviews, etc., we collected $28,952 for the month.
Any questions on the building report? Motion to approve. Mr. Mulcahy. Mrs. Ryder. Peters. That's when I was dating her. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Sorry. Let me see. Zoning, ZBA case 17-01, request for special use permit to section 121-99C22 campground in the A1 agricultural district and variances to section 121-281C accessory structure location and section 121-286C1 number of driveways on a parcel generally situated in section 1 of Pembroke Township. Petitioner is Alejandro Gomez Jr. and Alberto Sebastian, property owners and applicants.
This case was originally presented to the Planning and Zoning Committee back in May. At that time, the committee sent it back to the Zoning Board of Appeals for further consideration. So I'm going to go back over the points of the case right now. It's a 10-acre parcel located at on the south side of 6,000 South Road, just west of 17,000 East Road in Pembroke Township. Back around October of last year, we had gotten a call from a resident in the township alerting us to 3 new homes being built on the property, and we didn't have a permit for it. When we got out there, we found out that it wasn't homes, it was 3 little cabins, probably about 10 foot by 12 foot or so on the hill, and a pavilion had been built. So we put a violation notice on the property, and Mr. Gomez came into the office, and we explained to him that you can't have a campground there without county board approval through the issuance of a special use permit. And so this request is to try to rectify that situation. Let's see, page down. The layout on the map that you see on the screen is the buildings that have been built. The 3 red dots are where the locations of the cabin. The white square is the pavilion. They've put a horseshoe driveway in, and they have it's called a Sandpoint well that's been put in, which is where the blue dot is. And they had an outhouse up on the hill where the green dot is. The original zoning board hearing voted 5-0 to approve with conditions. Those conditions were: 1, the use of a campground is limited to friends and family of the owner, and under no circumstances shall it be used for commercial purposes. 2, the property is to be used for recreational purposes only, and living quarters are not to be used as permanent residences. The owner shall obtain and abide by all permits and licenses as required by federal, state, and local government. And 4, a sign indicating private property shall be installed at the entrance of the site. As I said, I said May earlier, it was actually April. On April 20th, PZA reviewed the case and sent it back to the zoning board because they had concerns about the well. The well is just a hand-pumped well. There was concerns about not having actual water on the site for fighting fires or for human consumption. Also, the Planning Zoning Committee, your committee, had issues with the term friends in the first condition. So it went back to zoning board for them to consider both of those points. Since that time, we had learned from the health department that campgrounds, even a private campground of this nature, have to be licensed by the state of Illinois. And they have a very stringent and lengthy list of requirements for that permit. One of those is proper drinking water and a well. So we believe that that will alleviate planning and zoning's issues with having a well when they apply for the state permit. So zoning board, so the process for this, and I think there's been some confusion, we're at step 1 right now, and that is to obtain proper zoning, which would be the special use permit, and they need a variance for the driveway. Step 2 is to apply for and obtain the state permit for a campground. That'll include all buildings on the site must be designed by an architect. They'll be reviewed by the state. The state will review the septic system or the sanitary sewer system, whatever that turns out to be, the well, and the entire site plan. As I said, it's very stringent. It's like 22 pages, the code for campgrounds. Step 3, if they get that approval, would be to apply to the county for the proper building permits, the entrance permit, the health department for the well permit and the septic permit, and get it all constructed and installed properly, which would be step 4, finish the construction of the site. Step 5 would be the final inspections and the occupancy permit. So you can see the owners have a long way to go to actually establish a campground on here, and we are at step 1. If for some reason, if the Planning and Zoning Committee were to approve the special use permit, and for whatever reason the state permits were not obtained, the special use permit would be null and void in 12 months from the date the county board approved it. If the site were not constructed within 12 months, it would also go away. So I want to try to alleviate some of the confusion that we had on where we were at. The Planning and Zoning Committee is not approving the entire site plan, what type of well is going to be there or what type of septic system.
Is there a motion?
Hang on, just one more thing. The Zoning Board of Appeals at the second hearing voted 5-0 to approve again, but they did modify condition number 1, which was they changed it to the use of the campground is limited to the private use by the owners, and under no circumstances shall it be used by commercial or for commercial purposes. So they've had friends and family stricken from the condition.
Okay. We need a motion before we discuss it. Mr. Mulcahy, motion to approve. Mr. Payton, a second. Okay, now discussion. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the explanation. That alleviated any concerns that I had. I didn't want to waste time with approving something if we didn't need to, but you explained the process well, and so I'd be full just moving forward on it, and we'll see what happens at
the beginning.
Yeah, could you sense the applicant's desire to go through this whole process, or?
Yes, they do seem willing to do so. They have not applied to the state yet. I think they're waiting to see how this goes because there's no reason for them to spend the money for the state application if they're not going to get zoning approval.
So what is our process between now and then? Do we just spot check to see if it's being used as a campground as time permits?
As we have people in the area, we have them drive by and see if there's been any changes or if anybody's actually using it. So, and that has not occurred. In fact, last time we were out there, all of the camping gear had been removed, and so.
Okay, it seems like good faith on the owner's part.
It seems to be, yes.
All right, Mr. Tripp.
Well, I was just saying, who enforces it? Who patrols it? I mean, you're talking about driving by once in a while and see if it's used.
Patrols it.
I don't like the sound of the whole thing yet. Although they got a lot of hoops to jump through before we get it back again, correct?
Yes. Patrols it for building code purposes. That would be the planning department.
They and their friends are using it every weekend to camp. How do we know that? Somebody's going out there and checking and or not?
Not every weekend.
Okay.
Probably hear from
not even most weekends. Through the week, when we have somebody in the area, we send them by.
Okay.
Certainly, usually neighbors help us police that by calling in with complaints when there are complaints. We have not received any since the original.
Any others?
Complaint.
Mr. Payton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the question that I have, the health and safety issues that has to be approved by the state, the zoning committee will be monitoring that, right, to make sure that they meet those requirements.
They will have to come back to us before they get their building permits to finish it all.
Okay.
With a approved signed permit from the state.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carried. Under planning, 50th anniversary of the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966.
Yep. Just wanted to let the committee know that our Historic Preservation Committee has been recognized by the National Park Service. Sent us a nice certificate as part of the 50th anniversary celebration of the National Historic Preservation Act. So just wanted to keep you informed of what's going on in the planning department, so thought I'd let you know that.
Okay. The reappointment of Michael Donahue to the Kankakee County Historical Preservation Commission. Do we need a motion on that?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion by Mr. Washington, seconded by Mr. Payton? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Under old business, reminder of the Highway and Building and PZA Committee meeting date changes effective July 2017. Our meeting will go back to its normal Wednesday, third Wednesday time frame. Any questions on that? Okay. Any new business? Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Was the comments made in public comment a new situation that you were just made aware of, Dell, or is this been
No,
something
this has
ongoing?
been an ongoing situation for a very long time. Me and Mr. Sons do not agree on his interpretation of our ordinance. He takes a very narrow interpretation and only picks out the parts of the ordinance that fits his needs.
Are there that many animals? on the
We have
property?
been out there. There are a number of cattle. I've not counted them. I would say at least 20. I've not seen a horse on the property. We've been out there many times. The last time we were out there, the only code violation we found were a few junk cars, which the property owner promptly removed. They are gone now. It is a farm. It's being used as a farm. Mr. Sons does not understand how the Illinois state statute for zoning also applies to this property, which states that if you have 5 acres, you are a farm. And if you are a farm, we cannot pass any zoning ordinance provisions that would prevent you from being a farm.
Including the building codes and the footings and all of that.
That is correct. And I've showed that to Mr. Sons many times, and
Was this grandfathered before our 20-acre rule?
no, the property is actually zoned A2.
Oh, okay. Not A1.
And Mr. Sons likes to claim that A2 is a residential zoning, but it's not. It's an agricultural zoning. That's why it's called A2, agricultural 2, for hobby farms, mini farms. We've been out there. The health department's been out there. The EPA's been out there. Department of Ag's been out there. And
Wow.
as far as I know, none of those agencies have any issues with the condition of the property.
Thank you. That's what I needed to know.
Mr. Tripp.
So what he said is not true, correct?
All of it, or in it?
Well, what?
What do you mean? I
Help
mean,
us. Help us. We haven't inspected.
are there fences? There sure are.
Do they
Split rail fences.
What about all these buildings and
are they using
additions and all
steel
that
beams
kind
for the split rails and maybe parts off of a scaffolding? Yeah, but there's no code against that. Is it the most attractive piece of property? No.
Yeah, a few
but-
of those anyway.
We have few regulations
I wouldn't want
against
that to be.
aesthetics. You also have to keep in mind Illinois is a right to farm state.
If you want protection, you buy more than a few acres to build a house. You buy 20 and put your house in the middle.
The only thing I found that could be a possible violation was the barn is not the 200 feet from the property line, as he states, but it's also an existing barn. So that would make it legal non-conforming
So,
by my understanding.
so they don't have all these animals there, correct?
They have some.
They have animals. There are animals there. There are a fair number of cows there. We do not limit the number of cows you can have on any particular property.
It's not 1 cow per acre. It's 1 horse
Nope.
per acre.
Horses are the only ones, and horses are not livestock. They are considered exotic pets. And we limit those for some reason, but we do not limit the number of horses, chickens, if you can have them. We do limit where you can and can't have them. You can't have them in a residential neighborhood or residential district. But if you can have them, it's whatever you can put on the property
Sound
and
very good.
keep them
Very
healthy and safe. And
Just to follow up on the building itself, the barn, the existing barn, legal non-conforming, that doesn't change with additions or lean-tos that are hooked up to it or modifications thereof?
I don't believe so. Additions, maybe. Because you're not supposed to expand a legal non-conforming. But I would have to dig deeper into that to see. And a lot of the claims on building permits and building without permits, we have not seen that.
Is the owner of that building, does he live there?
Yes. As far as I know, he does.
There is a house on the property.
There is a house on the property.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Phil.
Okay. Motion to adjourn would be in order. Mr. Payton moved and Mr. Mulcahy second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Yep, I think so. Now, there's a meeting afterwards about the